Good morning and welcome to the Morning Break Tuesday edition. I'm Rob Patz. It is good to be here. I wasn't sure. If you haven't noticed, the internet has been a stir this morning. I like that term. It's been a buzz. It's been a something. Been a train wreck actually this morning. Cloudflare down this morning, which affected a lot of digital portals, including the one that carries Abundant TV. The apps that we have all were affected this morning. It was an interesting morning. Started having bells go off on my phone, and so Cloudflare down. Kind of an interesting. And here's where I'm going to start the morning break a little different than we usually do, and we'll get to some of the other stuff. We're going to get to Cloudflare right away. Kind of interesting thing for me, because really, if you think about it, all the gateways that Cloudflare has and all the things that they do, all the responsibilities, of course, the big ones like X and all of those kinds of things, but even smaller apps like ours affected across our stream service. And it's kind of funny. I mean, it's not funny in a good way, but funny that we've seen this a couple weeks ago. We had to cancel a show because of another outage that included AWS stuff, and AWS a big part. Amazon, of course, a big part of what we do at the morning break. And so, just a great way to start your morning. Wake up early this morning, and bells are going off on your phone because you have all that kind of stuff. Hey, but I do want to thank the great folks at 7 Weeks Coffee. You know, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. My wife convinced me to order the variety pack from 7 Weeks Coffee. I normally don't do well going for variety. I like what I like. I like a dark roasted coffee, and you've heard me talk about that. And after the morning, I think I just spit into my own coffee. How uncool was that? I felt like it was going to splatter everywhere. That's what you do when you're on live TV. But you know, I've talked about this, and I've talked about the fact that I like just certain things. I like my coffee to be just I like dark roast, and still can't believe that was just dripping everywhere. And I do. And my wife got me into this. And if you've never had small batch, small roast coffee, you need to. It's incredible. The great folks, 7 Weeks Coffee. Use the promo code ATV10 when you order. And they have a great mission. We'll talk more about them, I'm sure, on future shows. But I want to talk about Cloudflare and everything going on there. Also, hey, listen, I lost at fantasy football this week. I had a moment. I left 2 players on, and if you know anything about fantasy football, I have 2 guys on my starting roster who did not play this week, and otherwise I'd have won. I only lost by 9 points the way it was. How terrible is that? I mean, come on, people, do better. Dallas and the Raiders last night. Of course, a lot of you know I grew up in the Seattle area. Pete Carroll was I loved Pete. Got a chance to meet him once, and just overall, just a cool dude. But man, they are currently just a ship afloat without any motor in Raiderville right now. I feel sorry for them. I feel, and you know, I know I've said this before. I like Geno Smith. I thought he was a good guy overall. The end in Seattle, he kind of became a jerk. So you never wish anybody bad luck, but man, dude has had just a tremendous, he's like a dumpster fire right now. Tough luck for the Raiders. They lose. Ends the week for football. We're going to try this drinking again, I think. Again. Much better. That went really well. Hey, listen, I wanted to talk about a couple things. Last episode, we talked about gifts for the holiday. And here's what I want you to do. Find us on the app or email me personally, or find me on social media. Tell me what you want for Christmas. Interesting list, and some stuff that, like, the stuff for guys I kind of got because it was all like barbecue related stuff this year, which is fine. But like some of the stuff was just odd. And like, do I really want to spend like I think it's $299 for a meat thermometer? Come on, people. Really? No, I don't want that for $200. I got a lot of other things. Tell me what your list is. Find us on social media. Hit us on the app. Super easy. If you're on the app, just go over to ask a question and you can ask me questions. I'll get them via email. And we would love to, of course, talk to you about stuff like this. We are going to be bringing up over the next few weeks here on the show. Super cool guest today on the show. David Shapiro is going to be with us after the break, and we're going to talk to him. He has a cool life and a cool beard. We'll do all that after this.
Behind every precious life, there was a choice. Behind every family moment, behind every special memory, there was a choice. A life of joy. A life that is beautifully and wonderfully made. At 7 Weeks Coffee, we are funding the pro-life movement, one cup at a time. Will you let your coffee serve a greater purpose?
Thanks to great folks at 7 Weeks Coffee. They're going to actually next week teach me how to drink coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee. Use the promo code ATV10. And David Shapiro is with us. David has the coolest beard we've interviewed so far. He's going to win that award at least through this season of the show. And David, it is good to have you with us. Love your story, and I want to get into it. It's why we cut the open a little short today, because I find everything fascinating about David's an author. He started as and I want you to tell the whole story, but I found a couple of things I wanted to ask you. So I'll let you tell your story, and then I want to ask the questions because it's super interesting. He grew up as an Orthodox Jew in a home in New York, so he probably knows where all the good delis are. Probably still where all the good delis are. We'll talk about that in a minute. And because my show, you're going to realize, is not very serious, but we do talk about serious topics, but we try to add a little fun. But tell everybody a little bit about, because you went from being an Orthodox Jew to an atheist and an agnostic. You decided to try out both the A's.
I did. And first, let me say that actually dark roast is my favorite as well. Typically, I like to drink it rather than spit it back out, but it is my favorite.
What was up with that? I was like, I don't know what happened. It happens. That's why it's live TV, and it's like it's not going anywhere. But there'll be people on for forever. I think I got excited about having you as a guest, and that's what I'm going to say. But David, tell everybody a little bit about your story.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Queens, New York, in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. I was born Orthodox Jewish from an Ashkenazi family. And I studied the Torah. I went to Hebrew school. I did everything that I was supposed to do as an Orthodox Jew. And every time I went to shul, I just never got the connection with God. I felt the tradition. I loved raised Jewish. I just didn't feel any connection with God whatsoever. And to be honest, I also grew up with dyslexia. So it was very challenging for me to understand what was being read, for me to read myself. It was just a really challenging way to grow up. And I wasn't a great student at that point. There was a story once where I didn't want to go to school, so I actually wrote a note saying that school was closed. I put it on the door so that way, if my mother walked by, she would see the note, and when she saw me home, wouldn't think I was lying. I mean, I was just not the ideal student, but I really just struggled with a relationship with God. And while I was going to Hebrew school, I went to secular school. In secular school, I was learning all about science and going, well, look, science is saying the different, things that what I was learning, and everybody here is feeling connected with God, and I'm not. There must be something wrong with me. And I kind of took that approach through my life. There was always something wrong with me. I had self-esteem issues, obviously not being able to read or pass class the way everybody else was. I struggled with that. And probably right around 16 years old, I'd already been bar mitzvahed at that point. I'd done everything I needed to do. I really just walked away. And when I say I walked away, it was a dramatic shift of not only does God not exist, but I'm going to try to persuade everybody who believes in him not to. I didn't want to be the only one at this point. I was in a neighborhood where everybody there was the same, and I was not only going to be the outcast, but I wanted to bring people with me. And again, not doing it on purpose, just wanting to feel normal, wanting to feel like I belonged somewhere. I kind of tried to do that life, and got involved actually in martial arts and became a professional fighter. I joined the military. I learned that basically the physical side of me was going to outperform the mental side of me. I had an issue, mentally and with my education, so I was going to use my fist, and my fist was going to be my education, and it made sense. That was honestly my church. My church was going to a facility with a heavy bag and snapping the leather against the bag. And that was the cadence of my life. All the while saying, look, if there's something out there, if there's something greater, I'll be a good human. I'm sure that's enough to get me into wherever I need to be, but I'm pretty sure there's nowhere there. So I'm just going to be good just to be good. And I lived that way for almost 20 years, about 15 years. And that was it. I thought I was happy. I was doing life that way, never realizing that little by little, I was just being chipped away. I covered my body with 40 or so tattoos because I realized that if I got a tattoo, you were looking at the ink and not the person. And it was a way for me to cover myself up. And it was just relationships became difficult, friendships became difficult. And then probably about 18 years ago, my mother had passed away. Now, my mother, she was a Jewish woman struggling with cancer, with cancer that should have, the doctor said, hey, any minute this cancer is going to take you. And she suffered with this diagnosis for 10 years. And then a week before she passed away, she accepted Jesus Christ out of the blue. And it didn't make sense to me. I didn't know why she did that. I figured maybe she's looking for hope. But again, she had this diagnosis for 10 years. Why all of a sudden? And I just kind of pushed it away, pushed it deep down. And it was probably about 5 years after that, I woke up one morning and I looked at my wife and I said, I think I need to go to church. And there was no dream, there was no pull, nothing happened in my life. It was literally just a conviction I woke up with that morning. And I said, I need to go to church. And I looked up the local church, and I went to the local church and sat in the back and was uncomfortable, covered in tattoos, feeling bad about myself, cursing God most of my life at this point. And I heard the sermon of this Heavenly Father that loves me. And it just caught me. I'm going, what do you mean there's a Father that loves me? And I'm listening to this sermon, and I'm just, I couldn't remember breathing. I was so into it. And when I left, a different pastor came up to me and said, here's a Bible. Why don't you read Matthew? It's written by a Jew of the Gospels. Let me know next week what you think. And again, struggling with dyslexia, I went home and dreading it. And I opened the book and I went back the next week, and he said, okay, how far did you get? And I read the entire thing. And I said, I read the entire Bible. And he says, what do you mean you read the entire book? He said, the whole New Testament? I said, yeah. And then the Old Testament again. It was as if I was getting the sequel to a book that I had started with 30 years ago. And I read it 3 more times in my first month. And I still to this day struggle with dyslexia. But when it comes to the Bible and biblical principles, writing about the Bible, it just vanishes. It's the most amazing thing. God is really, I mean, you want to talk about a God thing. I failed out of school 3 different times trying to go to college. I've now gone to seminary, gotten my master's, and just graduated my doctorate. I mean, this is a God thing.
That is so cool. So for people that may be just tuning in, and I should call you Dr. Shapiro, but I'll
No,
just
no,
call
no,
you
please.
David.
David's fine.
Yeah. David has dyslexia, and when he opened the Bible and read Matthew, it came easy for you. Right? That's what you're
It,
saying.
it, it did. The entire Bible actually came easy for me to read. And this is, the Old Testament I had read as a kid and couldn't read it. And then all of a sudden, it came alive and it became easy for me to understand and comprehend what I was reading. And it was, I mean, truly a God thing. This was something that was so bizarre to me. I had I had stopped reading books because of how difficult it is to read them. I'm that guy who I'll never read out loud. If a teacher asks for somebody to read something out loud, I was going to shrink down as low as, and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 280 pounds. To shrink down is very hard. And I would shrink down as little as I could because I can't read. And then all of a sudden, it was as if it went away.
So I have a question for you. And did during that 5-year period from when your mom passed away until you went to church, how often did you think about the fact that she converted to Christianity from being a Jew? That's the first question. I've got two. And
Yep.
then the second question I have, because I don't want to get ahead and then miss this one. So when you read Matthew, after reading, obviously studying the Old Testament, because that was what you did early in life, what changed? Did you go, there was more than I had originally thought? Or give us both those first. How often did you think
Yep.
about your mom and her conversion during that 5-year window from the time that happened until you went to church?
I'll tell you something very interesting about that, and it's kind of it became my tagline, which is the silence after your test becomes your testimony. And for me, there was this test of life that I had, and then my mom passed, and that was kind of the peak of all the things that had happened to me. And then there was silence. It was honestly 5 years of silence where I barely thought about it. I was afraid of. I was afraid of death. I was afraid of the choices that I made with my mother. I was afraid of who I was. I was truly afraid of a lot, but I stayed silent. And it's probably the 5 years of my lifetime. And I'm a talker and I love doing things. It was probably the most quiet I've been. And it was 5 years of silence where it truly was that moment in between my test and my testimony where I needed to, God was truly working on me at that point. So it was very little actually. And then your second question, when I went back and read over the Old Testament, yes, I mean, things came alive that never came alive before. Isaiah 53 is one that I go back to all the time, and I'm going, I can't believe this was here. And then I start thinking about it. I go, I don't believe I was ever taught Isaiah 53 as a youth. It wasn't as if we're taught that Jesus doesn't exist. We just weren't taught about him at all. So I try to go back and go, was I even taught Isaiah 53? Was this, I know now there's a lot of Jewish scholars who say, hey, we're talking about Israel and not about the Messiah. But I'm going, that's not right. There's too much specificity here. That going back, I was like, yeah, this is unbelievable. And now I go back still to this day and I pick up more and more and more. I'm going, it is incredible how filled the Old Testament is with the prophecy of the Messiah of Jesus Christ.
I love the Old Testament. I know there's a lot of Christians who shy away from the Old Testament, but there's so much to learn in the Old Testament. So fast forward. So now you've gone to church. What happens next?
So I wanted to learn more about, who this person of Jesus was. And I enrolled back in school again, thinking that this is going to be like every other time. I'll just fail out, which I didn't. And while I'm learning about him, I was and I still am. I say I was on fire, and I still am on fire for Jesus, and got baptized and just started to live a completely different life. And even while I was working, I was going, I think I want to work for a church. I think I want to work in ministry. I think I want to do something more for his kingdom. I'm just called to this. And I realized, I guess, how unique for me, I'm living my life. I don't see anything different. I realized how unique my story was. And there were people coming up to me going, I wish I had your story. I wish I had this type of testimony. And I'm going, it's just who I am. And I am now dedicating all the time that I have to just speaking about Jesus, speaking about my testimony, telling people about what he did in my life and what the possibility is. I mean, there are so many different areas of my life, whether it is me as a fighter, me as an atheist, me as a child. And I kind of didn't really mention this, but my father was very abusive. So learning about forgiveness and following those types of things, man, there's just so many different levels that God has worked on my life and trying to share that with people, but in a very different way, because I don't want people to have my testimony and my faith. I want them to have their own faith and their own testimony and realize that God is working right now, right in everybody's life. It's just a matter of, are you going to open your eyes and see what he's doing?
So I've got a ton of questions. One, you have a book out, right? That you have.
I have a book that's coming out. Yep, two coming out in 2026.
See, I'm ahead of the game. I read the website. So.
No, you're good. I have two that are being. So it's publishers that are publishing them. So they're not being self-published. So it takes a little bit longer to come out. So my patience has to be on point. One of them is an apologetics book, which is just a really great book that talks about how I know the Bible is real and Jesus is real. And anybody who has questions as a skeptic, it's really good to have some really great answers in there. The other one right now is titled The Pharisee I Didn't See. We'll see if that stays, but I love the title. And that one is, honestly, it's about me and everybody else. It's about us who follow sometimes a religion and not Jesus, who try to follow laws and rules and not necessarily a savior. So it's all the mistakes that we make along the way when we try to do the best for Jesus.
Oh, I love that. Because I think, unfortunately, and I'm a pastor's kid, so I grew up in church. I mean, generationally, you look at my family, we go way back as pastors and as people in the Christian faith. And I think the thing that we're realizing now as Christians, especially for me, and I grew up around it, is sometimes we've put man's rules on the church that are nowhere to be found.
Yes, agreed. And there are things. It goes very deep into some of those concepts, and then it comes to something as simple as worship songs, where my daughter is closest to Christ when she's listening to worship music, and I hear people around me sometimes going, "Well, I don't really like this song," and I go, "Okay, it's not for you; it's for God. We're worshiping God. He loves right now the singing." And it's, I'd be there going, I have an awful voice, I don't want to sing, and God's going, your voice is beautiful because it's praising. And so it's even little concepts like that mixed in with the larger concepts of, hey, sometimes you're right, we're putting some man's rules on things that wasn't meant to be there. And I just, that book was a fun one to write.
So go check out his website. Give your website, David.
It's drdavidshapiro.org. That's drdavidshapiro.org.
That's awesome. Man, I want to have you back because there's so much. We just barely scratched the surface. I love what you're saying. I love the things you're talking about, because what David is saying is no matter how far you currently feel away from God, he is right there. And I think that was, you were anti.
Yes.
You were you didn't want anything to do with God. In fact, you were out recruiting for the other side. And
absolutely.
And so listen, Dr. David, it's super awesome having you on. When we come back, my final thoughts. Next year, why? David's back. I did have one more question. I did have one more question. I forgot to turn you off, by the way, but I did have one more question. So this works out great. See,
I
David,
love it.
I'm glad he hung out through the break. I have one more question for you. How long after that did you go to school? And I was going to follow up on that because you went to church. They gave you a Bible. How long after that, like the process? And then I'm going to have to let you go because I have a final thought.
I enrolled almost immediately within a few months, and I was graduated school 9 years after the start.
Awesome. Hey, David, we're going to have you back. We'll talk. We're friends on Facebook, so we're going to talk. Dr. David Shapiro has been with us this morning on an edition that had a train wreck written all over it. But thank you, David.
Thank you.
Oh, final thought for the day. I've spit coffee on this edition. I have messed up stuff. They shouldn't let me. And there's a reason they should not let me have control over the cameras. And there it is. But hey, listen, I wanted to finish up, and we talked about Christmas. We talked about all that stuff earlier on the show. But interesting thing happened. It's a study out that's just new study out by Travel Magazine. And this was super interesting. Something that I found that the reason I find it super interesting is because my wife and I have started doing this year, and it's a trend that just started this year. And that is when people go on vacation. And I asked the question actually on social media the other day, and it was actually Sunday. I said, hey, listen, are you ready in planning for your next vacation next year? And the interesting thing that I got a lot of great responses and a lot of people going some cool places, including a relative of mine going to Japan, which I didn't know. But the interesting thing that I found was this. You're finding more and more people buying local things, local art, and that's what my wife and I started doing this year. Started with our trip to Savannah this year, and a local artist who also supported the Humane Society had some cool paintings. She was a painter by trade and supported the Humane Society and a few other things with her painting. So we have some of those hung. Went to Zion National Park for our family vacation this year and met a cartoonist who you would know, and we'll talk more about it because I don't have a lot of time. I'm coming out of my break here, but that you would know. And he has taken up from being a cartoonist, taken up watercolors, and we got one of his first pieces this year. I think that's super interesting. By the way, final thought for the day. Of course, podcasting super popular. Joe Rogan tops the yearly chart for podcasts, according to Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts, of course, the biggest of them all. Now Robbins, number 2, and a lot of other people battling for 3, 4, and 5 because it's really close. But number 1, Joe Rogan, and I love what he does. I can't imagine, because I do just a half hour every day. I can't imagine doing 3 hours like Rogan does. That is some serious work level. Anyway, hey, listen, I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Whatever you do and wherever you go, remember to take Abundant TV with you. You can download the app for your phone or watch us on Roku, Amazon Fire, or Apple TV. We'll see y'all tomorrow. This is The Morning Break.